Alto continued to reminisce of his childhood. After learning the lute, he found himself lacking one important object to be a musician. He had no instrument, not a one. He sat at the kitchen table and looked to his father. Oh, how he wanted to ask for a lute, a simple one. But that wasn't going to happen. There wasn't the money, not a chance of it. Oh, I want a lute. Just like the one that Clive's dad has at the tavern, the young Alto murmured as he petted their black rooster. It caught at the boy and spun about. That night, while Alto slept, the rooster moved about. Its tail erupted in flames as it took to the sky. Embers fell from it onto the thatched roofs of the village. Flames sprang up and shouts went out for water. Villagers rushed about to quench the flames. In the chaos, none watched the creature that flew above the village. It soared straight for the inn, where it slipped through the window. Its embers danced about the room as it searched. Tucked away in a corner was a lute. Black Rooster clutched the instrument as it left the tavern through the door. Flying through the air, the Aitvaras cawed as it returned home through the smoke and cinders, with its prize clutched in its talons. Welcome back to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today we turn to Lithuania to meet the Draconic Rooster known as the Aitvaras. Let's take a look at this strange and utterly bizarre creature. The Aitvaras comes from the Baltic nation of Lithuania. It is described as a black rooster whose tail will burst into flames as it takes to the sky to fly. It is said to shapeshift into a cat and other household animals, or into a flying serpent or flaming snake as it leaves the house. This look is created by the sparks and embers on its long tail as it flies. It has been compared to comets and meteors in flight. It is described as looking like a cross between a dragon and a rooster in its true form. It can be hard to know when you have one at times, if you aren't observant. Many claim that it is an earth spirit. If I had to give it an alignment, I would say chaotic neutral. Not evil or good, but some loyalty. So, what is this thing? We have a reptilian bird that is capable of proper flight. It has wings, a long feathered tail, taloned legs, and a crest on its head. Is there anything like this in the world? Well, not alive, but in the fossil record, yes. First up, Archaeopteryx, about 150 million years ago. First feathered bird. It was about the size of a magpie, so much smaller than a rooster. But it doesn't have a beak like Aitvaras, which means we are looking further down the fossil record. Beaks first appeared about 60 to 70 million years ago, which is about when most reptilian features disappeared from birds. The N and I ornithes are the birds of this time, but still had teeth, exactly like Aitvaras, and they are the precursor to galliforms, such as roosters and chickens. So, we have pinned down what we are looking at for the most part, but there is more to the Aitvaras. There is a fair bit of literature on its life cycle, which is rare for a mythical creature. There are a few ways to obtain one. If you are willing to sell a soul to the devil, he can give you one. Most, however, are bred. This is where there is disagreement. One option is it can be hatched from the testicle of a black stallion. The second, and more likely, is keeping a black rooster or one with a brightly colored tail in a house for 7 years, until it lays an egg, which it will need to tend to all alone, or it needs to be kept under your armpit for warmth. And we've already hit a problem on this one. Roosters are male, and male birds don't lay eggs, so something else is going on. Parthenogenesis is a trait found in a few reptiles where females are able to reproduce without a male. Kind of. There are a few different forms. In one version, female lizard still mates with a male, but from a different species, to stimulate the process. The others do not. There are problems with this. One, the offspring are basically clones of their mothers, and the population struggles against disease due to a lack of genetic diversity. This occurs in reptiles, but what about birds? Surprisingly, yes. There are examples of it in turkeys, which happen to be in the Galliformes family, which includes chickens. A heavy majority of the eggs do fail with this, but there are a few which do survive. So yes, this may be possible if the rooster was female, but it isn't. Unless we are mistaken. What if the Aitvaras just looks like a rooster, but they are actually female? They already look like a rooster, so this isn't too difficult. We have our dragonoid mimicking a rooster's appearance. So, if all Aitvaras are female and are able to undergo parthenogenesis, then yes, this breeding option is feasible. It needs to be between 9 to 15 years old before it reaches maturity, and needs to live in a house for about 7 years before it will lay an egg. This is much slower than a regular chicken, but highly feasible for many animals. The housing is an issue. Once Aitvaras has claimed a house, it won't leave unless it feels disrespected by those that live there. Nope, it likes the home, and it takes a lot to make it leave. One account talks about holy water can entice it to leave. It'll make a nest, usually by the stove. They are very territorial and don't like other Aitvaras's in the house. They will viciously fight each other to the death over their home. This would reinforce the idea of it reproducing using parthenogenesis. Asexual reproducing species tend to be more prone to competing with members of their own species. No need to socialize in cooperative behavior. Also, staying inside reduces the risk of exposure to parasites and other avian diseases. Why do you want it to leave? Well, Aitvaras is known to eat eggs, grains, milk, cream, leftovers, and particularly omelets, but it has a tendency to steal them from the neighbors. Worse, if you happen to make a wish known to it, it might go and steal from your neighbors to make your wish come true. It will only take physical goods like money, possessions, and other objects. Yet, it has a tendency to be a pest at times. To make matters worse, the flames on its tails can set fires around the town. It's careless and dangerous. It also happens to be known to spread diseases to people in its home, particularly women. Yet this could just be people projecting. Yes, there are plenty of reasons that you want to get rid of it, but it does help out the household and will serve as a guard rooster protecting the house. It even brings luck to the house, helps the crops, warms the place, and other nice feats. It is all over the place on what it does. Upon death, it is said to become a spark. This would be from the last kindling embers of its flames on its tail being released. Usually, ill fortune will follow its death. Now, I know we have shown what species of birds the Aitvaras falls into, but is it a dragon? It is often called a dragon. There are many sources that do so, even one that calls it a demon, but this is more of it just being a pest. So what determines if it is a dragon? Is it intelligent? Smart enough to understand conversations and understand what people are talking about, but not a morally strong creature. It does have reptilian features. Magical? Well, it has shape-shifting powers, its tail can create flames, and if injured, it can heal by absorbing energy in the ground simply by touching it. So yes, it seems to have some magic. Overall, yes, I am going to agree that Aitvaras is a type of dragon. More akin to a wyvern, but much smaller. But I need to ask, could it be related to the phoenix? Another bird-like creature that has flames. This one gives off sparks upon death rather than flames. There are a few similarities, Maybe, but most accounts refer to it as more draconic, or a mix of bird and reptile. Thus, I don't think they are related, just convergent evolution. So, how do we defeat the Aitvaras? It is well documented that it can be killed. Not always smart to, but you can. How do we kill a rooster? An axe, a sword, a mace? Any will hurt it, but it will fight back. It has the flames on its tail which can burn and hurt you. Also, its talons and beak can easily cut into your skin. Yet, it is physically strong. While not big and lacks weight behind it, Aitvaras is strong. A kick from its foot or a flap from its wings, it will hurt and may knock you down. You'll need armor. Gambeson, chainmail, or plate will help. You'll definitely want a helmet to protect your eyes. You don't want them gouged out, do you? With its wings, it can dart about through the air. It has high mobility and can be fast. It can swing its tail at you. Be ready for flames and sparks. Don't let them set anything on fire around you. I'd bring a fire resistance potion to save yourself. Also, buckets and buckets of water. I'd probably have one party member whose one job is to quench any fires which start up. A net or large blanket could be used to wrap it around and hold it down. It'll fight back and might kick you off. If you do try to kill it, you need to do it in one clean cut. If it is hurt and then touches the ground, it will heal instantly. That means keeping it airborne, where it will take its more draconic form. While in the air, you could use your bow and arrow. I'd use metal arrowheads. Wood would catch fire and will only spread it. As for magic, ice and lightning put an end to it quickly. Be careful with throwing rocks at it. I haven't been able to find out if it could be healed by being hit by a rock. What is the difference between a rock and the earth? Size? Composition? I don't know. Regardless, be careful. Watch out for the sparks that fly when it dies. Just be careful and get some immediate distance. But why fight? If you want to get rid of Aitvaras, create a disrespectful environment. One where it feels unwanted. Don't give it food it likes, but then it will steal from your neighbors. Still, if you can create an unpleasant enough environment, it may leave. If not, there is one final option. Aitvaras will not live in an empty house. No. It likes a warm home, one that is lively and has food. If you abandon the house, so will the Aitvaras. It won't go right away, but will after a while. If you leave the house, you can eventually return, but this can take months to achieve. Aitvaras is a strange creature. It isn't something that you would think would be powerful, yet I am going to give it a 3 of 10 for difficulty. It is highly mobile. Its innate flames and healing powers can make it difficult to handle when not prepared. Yet, if handled without force, it is much easier. Many folk seek to domesticate the Aitvaras, and for good reason. It brings luck. It may bring you money, treasure, and good fortune, and yet may steal from your neighbors and bring their ire, or it might bring sickness to your house. This is a tough call on which is better. It makes for a loyal watchdog. It can protect your family from brigands and beasts alike. Its feathers can be used in luck, fire resistant, and fire starting potions. You can use them as kindling in your evening cooking fire. Those will be shed at a regular basis, and easy to collect. Just go and check its nest throughout the week. If you wish to keep it, be sure to show your new pet bird respect. Give it omelets and plenty to eat. With enough, it won't want to steal. Give it attention and treat it like a spoiled dog. Show it respect, and you've got a great asset. One that many will definitely want, but others don't. It'll be your call. If you do kill it, The blood can be used in heat resistance and some healing potions. Yet, it'll probably steal some if you keep it alive. Honestly, that may be what I would do. Just be careful with its flames when it goes flying. The sun rose on the small village. It had been a long night for the villagers, as they had to combat the blaze. Anger was as hot as the flames, and there was no one to blame. Alto awoke that morning to find a beautiful lute sitting near the foot of his bed. Eagerly, he jumped up and began to play. His fingers danced over the strings and let forth a beautiful melody. Happily, he rushed outside and played for all to hear. The sweet tune put a smile on the haggard faces of those that continued to work. All save one. A big, burly man came running up. "Oi, brat, you stole my lute. What were you doing in the tavern? Give it back." He snatched the lute from Alto's hands. "I'm sorry, I found it," Alto explained pitifully. "What were you doing?" "I left it in the tavern. Tell me, boy." I don't know." "Mr. Morton, what's wrong?" Alto's father asked. "I found your kid with my lute." "Alto, what is this?" It was by my bed," he replied as the rooster strutted up and rubbed its head against his leg. He reached down and pet the Aitvaras. It looked up at him proud of its work, but not understanding the angry man before him. None would find out what happened that night, and it would be several years before Alto could afford a lute on his own merit. He still had the same lute. It wasn't that nice, but played beautifully, particularly under the loving care of Alto. He smiled as he tuned the instrument. Aitvaras truly is an interesting creature. Loyal and mischievous, it straddles the line between a vexing curse and a bountiful boon. Tell me, would you keep one in your house, a prized pet, a persistent thief? It is a strange creature to handle. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please come back next week, where we will be looking at the bard class in proper detail. Until then, I'll see you on the road.